Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of, we'll call it a webcast, here with Dudley Consulting. I am Crystal Dudley. I'm a licensed professional counselor, a licensed chemical dependency counselor. I have been in the mental health field for at least 10 years. And here recently, as I started to pursue my doctoral degree, I realized that consulting is an area where there is a very, very high need for those who are in the mental health field, especially those who want to be entrepreneurs. It's something that we are not necessarily taught in school, especially not at master's level. Many of us are out here products of trial and error. I know I am. If I was to talk about my first 3 years in business, oof, we could go on and on about all the mistakes that I made. And so, the idea here for those of you who are listening is to try to give some advice and to kind of help, point you in the right direction. But if you ever would like some more one on one, advice, some coaching. I also do specific counseling for therapists, like career counseling for those who are in the behavioral health field, where we kind of navigate some of the stressors of your particular work. Please visit my website at www.dudleyconsulting.net. Today's episode, if I had to title it, it'd be called Pivot, Protect, Prosper: Thriving in Behavioral Health as a Black Entrepreneur. Yes, I'm speaking directly to Black entrepreneurs who decided at the beginning of the year to finally pursue opening up your business, whether that was a private practice, whether that was a group home, whether that was a consulting service, whatever nonprofit, anything that you thought would be helpful to give back to your community, especially offering some sort of service, human service, in a sense. And then to see the economy do what it's doing right now due to some of the crazy things that are happening in our administration. So, the topic today, basically, I am focusing in on you, the Black entrepreneur, but any professional that's in the behavioral health space. That can be therapists, coaches, program founders, clinic owners, etc. All right. And so, pivoting in behavioral health under this current administration, let's go ahead and call it what it is, right? Um, this is reshaping our economy. It's reshaping how we do healthcare and any access that we may have to any other services just by some of the things that have been done. Um, the idea of starting a business may have been very simple, because we were looking at the type of clientele that we would be serving. We were looking at funding sources that were going to be coming from the federal government, grants, things of that nature. However, now we see that this is not going to be a quick fix. This is not going to be something that's going to be easily accessible. And now many of us have started the LLC, started the sole proprietorship, started the nonprofit, the S Corp, the C Corp, whatever. And now we're kind of stuck and just spinning our wheels trying to figure out what to do. Hopefully, some of the points that we make today won't cause you to pump the brakes and decide to just stop. What we plan to do today is pivot. What else can I do during this time to bring in revenue to keep my business afloat until some of this madness subsides? Um, and I wanted to speak specifically to the heart of the African American entrepreneur, because we have been known historically in many, many instances to be able to pivot. We are very resilient as a people, and we deal with unique systemic barriers all the time, but we don't pump the brakes. We don't stop. We figure out how to get in through the window when the door is closed. And that is exactly what we have to do during this time. So this moment is not just about surviving, it's about recognizing when it's time to shift so that we can thrive. So what's shifting right now when we think about human services, behavioral health, mental health, substance abuse services, housing, things of that nature? Many policy changes are happening. As you remember back around the pandemic, telehealth was something that made it possible for a lot of us. We were hurting in the beginning. Um, I opened up my first private practice in 2019. And let me say, I was a very lucky entrepreneur because the moment that my paperwork finally lined up and everything was good and we cut the ribbon, the facility that I was working for as a full-time job, they closed down. And I remember the utilization manager walking up to me and said, "Hey, don't you have a private practice?" And I was like, "Yeah, what's up?" And she gives me this box of binders. And she was like, "They're all your clients now." And so me and my credentialing specialist got busy trying to get me on as many panels as I could so that I could keep as many of those clients in services during that time under my private practice. However, shortly after that, about a year after that, we went into the pandemic. And unfortunately, most of us were told not to have in person services. And in the small town where I was living at the time, many people were not willing to do telehealth. And I don't know, those of you who are in mental health, I don't know if you remember that in the beginning, telehealth had to be within 20 miles of the person's address. It had to be that they could drive to you in order for you to be approved to do telehealth. Well, during this time, most insurance companies and some policy changes made it so that you could see people within the entire state in which you were licensed. And then if you were going to practice across state lines, you had to get a telehealth license in those other states. And they made it possible for so many people to get telehealth licenses at that time. Well, now that we are going through some of these policy changes, and so many funding sources are being cut and so many people have lost their jobs, a lot of states are starting to open up their telehealth policies again, some of them offering for free. And after I post this to my website and on YouTube, I will provide a link for some places that are still offering free telehealth licenses for those of you who are mental health professionals. So anyway, many people are starting to open up, telehealth licensure once again to try to help out some of the clinicians there in those states who may not be able to take over and help the people there who need to be served. Medicaid expansion is another issue. There's just Medicare, TRICARE, these areas where so many more people are being approved to have these federally funded insurances, but not enough people who are actually taking them at this time. It's just causing a huge disparity when it comes to mental health overall and human services. There's a rising demand for culturally competent care, which is another reason why I wanted to direct this to African American people. Let's just be honest, because of some of the things that I discussed earlier that we as a people have faced, sometimes it's really, really hard to see a clinician who is not a person of color to try to help them to understand what that feels like to experience those things. I have a client currently who I won't go too far into detail, who, talked about some of the systemic issues with regards to her childbirth and trying to decide whether or not she wanted to actually go into the hospital and deliver in the hospital or hire a doula. and deliver her baby at home because she had complained about some things early on in her pregnancy that another doctor had minimized her issues and told her that she was just over exaggerating. Well, she ended up going to a specialist, and the specialist was a woman of color. And the specialist was able to identify why she was having these issues. And had she not reached out to a specialist and listened to her body, this could have been very, very detrimental when it was time for her to deliver this baby. Well, that would be a hard topic to talk about with someone who's not of color. Will they really understand that unless they have, also taken some cultural competence training and kind of understand some of the things that we as people of color kind of deal with? So there's a rising demand for culturally competent care in all areas: coaching, group homes, counseling. Very, very important, especially post pandemic and amid what's going on right now, even racial trauma. And this is probably one of the things that made each and every one of you who are listening want to open your business this year and start serving your community. Um, Even AI licensing now, something that has made it a lot easier for us in the field to create business plans, to create operations manuals, and all the things that we need to do, note taking, just running our businesses all together. Like all the tools that would have made us successful from January 1, all these things are there. However, due to the state of this economy right now, many of us are suffering and are unable to kind of figure out which way to go. We have to be aware of these shifts. They allow us to prepare and to position ourselves so that we don't later on find ourselves in a panic. Technically, we are still in quarter one. And so if this is what quarter one has shown us in the first 3 months of, this year, we can pretty much get an idea what the rest of this year is going to look like. So in essence, we can get ahead of the game. We just got to figure out what our own pivot looks like. So finding your pivot, what does that really mean? Pivot doesn't mean I got to start over. I got to go back to the drawing board, because whatever your vision was, that can still be your vision. It just means I need to refine it. It means that I need to redirect. And it may mean that I need to temporarily rebrand until things clear up. So, is what I'm offering aligned with today's demands and tomorrow's needs? Right now, the demand is high for every area that we mentioned. Coaching is very high, counseling, the need is high, housing, the need is always high. However, how am I going to supply those needs amid some of the challenges that are happening with regards to federal funding? So some examples of ways that I can pivot might mean I might need to add some virtual services to my business instead of opening up a brick and mortar at this time. Maybe instead of offering services at this time, I offer some courses. I start a podcast, right? Um, Maybe I need to add a new population or focus in on a population, especially a particular population that may be suffering during this time. One huge population that's suffering during this time are veterans. Veterans are suffering. The Veteran Affairs offices in almost every major city, but I'm just going to say overall, all of them suffered lots of losses due to some of the recent layoffs. If you have worked with Veteran Affairs, this is not me putting a slander on Veteran Affairs. I love veterans, and I love the fact that we are connected with Veteran Affairs. I love that we're contractors and that they continue to send us their business. But there was already a wait list for many vets who were trying to get out into the community, get authorizations to get services in the community, and that was before the layoffs. Now that we are in post layoff, and there probably are more to come, the line or the wait list has definitely increased. This right here is an area where you can pivot your population to say, how can I serve vets right now? However, how can I do it without necessarily depending on federal funding? What are some things that vets still have access to that can definitely be utilized for them to pay for services or to cover their services with what it is that I offer? Other ways to pivot, offer consulting. If you have created your business from start to finish and the state says it's good to go, but I may not be operating just yet, there's some people out there who don't even know how to do what you've done. Host some classes on entrepreneurship, host some classes on how to file the correct paperwork, host some classes on how to write the business plan for what that is. Provide supervision for those of you who are licensed in the field. I know many of us don't want to go get more certifications. If I had time on my schedule, I'd probably do it. But right now, the way my schedule looks, there's no way I could supervise people professionally. And then offer some digital products, some webinars, some things that people can download that you don't have to be available to teach. I know for a fact that Groupon is always looking for people to offer courses and put them on their website. So there's ways that you're able to pivot during this time to continue to make money for your business. Number one, get it established. Number two, and number three, still serve your community. Your pivot is rooted in purpose, not panic. But you, as the entrepreneur, you've got to get a hold of your own mental health, and you've got to make sure that you do lots of self care during this time. The mental load of leadership as a Black founder is heavy. Heavy is the crown. Self care goes beyond taking a bubble bath at the end of the day. It goes beyond going to get a manicure. It goes beyond taking a nap. It's about creating healthy boundaries. I got to know what it is that I can take and what I can't take, and I got to be able to say no. Sometimes I got to say no to myself. It means learning how to delegate. This is a class that I had to take a lot, learning how to delegate and allow others to help me be successful. But most of all, you've got to rest. Many of us are not working 100% in our businesses. Many of us still work a full time 9 to 5, right? So, with that, you have to give yourself the opportunity to rest so that it doesn't look like you're going out of one workload into the other and not taking time to rest. Because if I have not rested, my brain is not going to work correctly and my body is not going to fall in line and do the things that it needs to do to get me from point A to point B. So I'm only as successful as the amount of rest that I've gotten. So, some tools that you can use to keep yourself mentally healthy and to make sure that you're taking care of your self care. Number one, mindset journaling. Every day for about 5 minutes, just sit down with your journal, ask yourself, what am I carrying that is not mine? What am I carrying that is not mine? Because if I need this time to focus on me and my journey, and my business, my self care, my mental health, I can't carry the load for everyone else too and give what I need in the spaces that I've been trying to give more in. Another thing that you can do, go to therapy, go to coaching. Um, you can't pour from an empty cup. And 9 times out of 10, if you are the person who is the go getter, who decided to start a business, who wants to serve others, you are most likely that person to all of your people. When people need advice, when they need someone to pour into them, they come to you. And a lot of times when you are that person, you don't have a lot of people who also uh, pour back into you. You are the one that's pouring out into everyone else. So go to therapy, go to coaching, get someone to listen, get someone who will advise you from a safe space, get someone that will, number one, pour into you, but show you how to replenish those things that you're giving out to everyone else. Um, do some digital detoxing. Block some time out every week, maybe even every day, to just disconnect and reconnect your brain, so that you don't get so drained by all the things that you're seeing on a daily basis. Watching the news every day can be depressing. Opening up your computer and seeing, headlines on Google can be depressing. Not even that, just being on social media and watching, people discussing certain things in these groups can be depressing. And now I have to take all of that and still apply it to what it is that I'm trying to do in this reality. Your mind is your greatest asset. So protect it like your business depends on it, because it does. Um, Reclaim your power in business. You're not just building a business, you're trying to break cycles. Many of us don't come from families that started businesses. So there's not a lot of people we can look to encourage us. I know when I first started my business, I was told by several family members that I needed to go get a real job, y'all. Now, mind you, when you are working for yourself, it doesn't come with PTO. It doesn't come with a 401k. It doesn't come with benefits. These are things that you still have to kind of purchase on your own. And you have to create your time that you're going to travel, but also recognize that time not working means time not paid. So we don't come from families all the time that understand that we're trying to do something different. We're trying to build for our retirement. We're trying to create a space for our children so that when they get into the working world, they may not have to look for jobs or have to change their persona to be hired by some Fortune 500 company. They can come and work in the family business, right? So, reclaim your power in your business, because you're not just building a business, you're breaking cycles. The cultural weight that we carry are sometimes being first, sometimes being the only, and sometimes being the trailblazers amongst our group of people who we interact with. Pivoting is not failure, it's faith in motion. A lot of times we feel like because we have to pivot, that means that we failed. When we went into the pandemic, I lost 100% of my clientele, because 100% of my clientele was in person. I had to shut down my practice in that small town, and I had to up and move back to the Dallas Fort Worth area so that I could see people within a 20-mile range who wanted to do telehealth. I had to move my home just so I could succeed in my business. Now, shortly after that is when they opened it up to the state. So maybe if I had kind of waited a little longer, I would have been able to stay where I was. However, financially, I was not in a place where I could do that. So pivoting is not failure, it's faith in motion. Like, I know I started this business for a reason. I know that for those of you who are spiritual, I know that the divine put this passion in my heart. I know that my ancestors would be proud of me. I want to honor my ancestors by creating this business. So, those of us who are doing it for a higher purpose, remember, it's not a failure, it's faith in motion. There's no shame in needing to shift. The real risk is staying stuck in, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. So I want to wrap up with some action steps. Number one, where do you feel like you've become stagnant? In the areas where you feel like you're not moving, that's where you need to brainstorm a pivot. Reflect on what your self care routine looks like in this season. Have you even been taking care of yourself? And if you haven't, What can you do more of? One of the things I do encourage you to do during this time is definitely starting with the journal. If nothing else, start writing down the things that you are carrying that don't belong to you, that you are deciding to let go of, so that you have more room on your plate for the things that are serving you during this time. And then affirm yourself daily, weekly, monthly. The affirmation that we're going to close up with today: I have permission to evolve. I am not behind. I am becoming. Again, I have permission to evolve. I am not behind. I am becoming. I look forward to hearing some of your stories. Definitely feel free to leave a comment on our YouTube page. Um, Definitely leave a comment on the post from our website. And definitely send me a message on the website, just to kind of give me some updates about what your pivot is looking like. And again, if you want some one on one time and you really need some help, some step by step time, and you want to sit down and do a consultation on what it would look like for me to guide you through helping you to be successful in your business, please do not hesitate to reach out. www.dudleyconsulting.net. That is Dudley consulting.net. Thank you for listening to today's episode. And I hope that you will continue to be a listener for the ones that we record in the future. Have a great evening.